Hello, this is Pavel, and I am here with a C++ exercise that's going to be an object-oriented programming type of exercise mixed with processing some external text files. So here's the assignment. Read in from the attached file called Program.txt a series of names and ages. So just so we know what it is, it's basically I created a text file with a bunch of names and an age. So first name space last name space age. We should not assume that we know how many rows are in the file. In other words, it could be any number of names. You will save the file to c/temp, which I already did, location on your computer. Now the program will have a function called getData that reads in the data into an array of objects that contain first name, last name, and age. Then we will define a class called person. We will have person.h and person.cpp files, and that will contain three private variables for first name, last name, and age, and public accessors and set functions for those as well. Now the main app should have a function called CalculateAvgAge that gets an array of objects passed to it, and also the number of objects in the array. So that those are the two things that we will be passing into this function, and the function will calculate the average age and returns it as a double in main.cpp. So main app should contain at least two functions: calculate average age and get data. So these two will be in the main, and the rest will be in the person.cpp and person.h. Alright, so I'm using Visual Studio. If you're using something else, just change this to simply main with no parameters or whatever your IDE uses as default, and delete this include. Okay, so first thing, I'm going to add a class. We will add a class, and I'll call it, it's a C++ class, and I'll call it person, just like they want us to. It automatically creates person.cpp and person.h for me. So let's start with the person.h. Alright, so over here, well, I'm going to go with some standard stuff here. I will do if define person h, actually if not defined, of course, and then we will define person h. Okay, so that's the classic, that's the standard, and we will of course end if. This is the header file, so in it we have the class person, and we will have some public and private. So I'll do with private first, and private will be very simple. It's going to be the string for the string first name, string last name, and integer intAge. Now the names, that's how they wanted us to name those things. You can see str first name, str last name, and intAge. So since we are using these, I have to do using namespace std, and also I will include iostream. Alright, so that will get rid of the squiggly lines. We have the private, now we do the public, so we have the default constructor over here now, and we can do another one which will accept the parameters. So we will do another person constructor, except this one will accept string for the first name, string for the last name, and integer for the age. So now we will do setting values. That's going to be done in the CPP file in the constructor. Like, we will pass the name and an age into a constructor. So we can do the setters in case we want to like change it later, in the process. But this exercise does not require us to, but it does want us to have setters and getters as well. So first name, that's a string. We will void set last name as a string, and of course the age as well, but this one will be integer. Set age, and it expects integer. Now let's get the getters. So it's gonna be get values. It gets the string for the first name, so it will be get first name. I'll do it as a constant, so it doesn't change here. Return string first name. I will do string get last name again as a constant, because we don't want to mess up the names are being set in a constructor. We don't want to change them somehow while we're running the program. So return string last name, and integer get age, and it will of course return the intAge. And that's really all for the header. There's not much else to do. Let's go to the person class. We're already including the person.h, and we can do the first the empty constructor, the default. So person, and it's gonna be empty. All right, so and now we will do the one that we will be passing the values to. So it's gonna be person, and this one expects the string first name. It expects string last name and integer age. And in it we can set the values. Remember, we are getting the setters over here, so we can set them right here. We can pass these values straight to our setters. So we will set values using setters and passing user supplied values. So it's gonna be set first name, which we already created in the header, and we will pass the first name to it. We will do set last name and pass the last name to it from the constructor. It's this one. And now we'll pass this age and into our setter for age, set age, that we already created, and we pass the age to it. So this will set the values, and now we can we can probably I forgot it. We already have these default here. By default it creates the constructor when I create a class. Anyway, so we can do a little like a basic input validation. So setters perform a very basic input validation, and we can do something like, I don't know, if first name has at least one character, consider it a valid input. In other words, if it has 0 characters, someone doesn't enter anything at all, then it is going to be invalid input. Obviously, one character does not make a valid first name, but for our purposes that's good enough. So we will do person and set first name, and we will pass the variable from it to it of the first name, and so we are already setting it here. Obviously we are calling it, passing the first name, and we are going to validate the input. So if our supplied name, the user supplied name length is greater than 0, then we're happy with it. That's our name. So string first, how did I name that? First name over here. String first name equals the first name. Otherwise, we will output some message like cout invalid input for first name, and we'll just exit. We won't even give the user any option to fix the problem. So we will exit failure. So that's for our first name, and we can do the same for our last name, and something similar for the age as well. Let me just copy paste that. So this one will be setLastName, and it will expect the last name, and obviously it will be last name. If the last name length is greater than 0, then our string last name will equal to the supplied last name. Otherwise we have an error for last name. So, and now for the age we can do something like if age is greater than 0, consider it a valid input. So in other words, you have to be at least 1 year old to be able to be included. So our void person, we will set age and pass the age, and again if the age is greater than 0, we have our age, so our integer age equals age. Otherwise we will do the same thing. We'll just output an error, cout invalid input for age, and we will again just exit on failure. Okay, so yeah, that should be all for our that should be all actually for our class at all completely, because the if you remember, the function CalculateAvgAge should be part of the main. So let's do the main. So what do we need in our main? Well, we will need to include some things. We will be reading a file, a text file, so we need to include a stream. I'm going to be including also input-output manipulation, because we are going to be inputting things and outputting as well, like cout, cin, and we will be working with string, so include string, and I'm going to be using a vector for the, they want us to use an array of object, but they want us to not know how many names are actually in the file. So it's better to use a vector because it expands dynamically regardless of how many files we add to our text file or how many we remove. It will grow or shrink accordingly. So we can do include vector, and of course let's not forget we also include our person.h. Okay, so let's do our prototypes, and there will be, so they want us to do a get GetData function. They want us to make a CalculateAvgAge, so it's double calculate. Let's just name it the way they want us to. CalculateAvgAge, so CalculateAvgAge. And they want us to pass into it, if you remember, they want us to pass the array of objects, so it's gonna be the vector of objects and the number of objects in the array. So we are passing the vector, which is going to be a vector of person, because that's our object, that's our class, and the number of objects in the array or in the vector, which is going to be an integer, of course. So another one will be, or the last one, I will create a displayed output, and this one will again have a vector of person, and it will have a double, because that will be the result of the calculation, and the result of the CalculateAvgAge function is a double. CalculateAvgAge, and returns it as a double. So these are our prototypes, and now we can just do our main. And the main basically will have only one thing in it, and we will process everything within the functions that we like within the GetData, CalculateAvgAge, and display output. So all I have to do here is call GetData, and GetData will process it, pass it to a CalculateAvgAge. CalculateAvgAge will return it to a display output, and display output will display the output. Okay, so that's our main. Very simple, but obviously that won't do anything. Not yet, anyway. So let's do our GetData first. So let's first open file for read only. We don't need to write into it. We'll just read it. That's all. So I will do ifstream, and I'll create it variable called input file, and our input file dot open, and here we will, as it expects, the path to our name to our file, which is the c/temp. So it's c and /temp, and the file is called Program.txt. That's how they wanted us to name it. So iOS, and this is for the input. So this is our file. This would work. This will not work because of the slashes, the way they are designed. We need to double them in order for this to actually create a path. So over here I can go and do double slashes are needed to map the path correctly. So this is our input. That's all. And now we can verify if everything was okay, and if it did, we process it. If not, then we will exit or display an error. So let's do verify the file opened. So if the input file fail, then we will simply output an error. So cout something like unable to open or process the file. And that's really all. There's nothing else we can do. We will exit again on failure. However, if it open okay, which is gonna be our else, so if it open okay, we can process it. So the text file is designed in lines. Obviously you have a bunch of lines, so we will read one line at a time. So I'll create a variable called string line, And again, since we do not know the name of the number of the files or the number of lines, I'm going to go with vector like I explained before instead of an array. So vector person, and it is going to, I'll just call it array of names. Now it's not really an array, but well, in a way it is, I guess. And they want us to keep count of the number of lines, because remember, we will be passing the number of names or lines into our function that calculates the average age. So we will do an integer counter and initialize it to 0. So this one counts the number of elements in vector. It's not really necessary. We can retrieve the number of elements, you know, dynamically, but they want us to keep count, so we will. All right, so now we will process the file one line at a time. So we will do a while. We will do getLine. While we get line from the input file, we will pass it to our line variable, the string variable that I just created. And here we will, this is actually where we will be splitting the line into 3 variables, one for first name, one for last name, and one for age. And as you can see, the structure is very simple. It's first name space last name space age, and the next line is the same thing, first name space last name space and age. So we will split the string by spaces that will give us the values for first name, last name, and the age. All right, so now we need to find for each line we have to find the position of those spaces. We need to find where the first name ends and the last name starts, and the last name ends and the age starts. We know the first name starts from the element 0. It's from the index 0, but how we don't know the length of the name, but the length ends where the space starts, where the first space starts. So we know that there are 2 spaces. So what we can do, we can declare an array with 2 indexes. So we can declare array with 2 indexes that will hold the position of each space, that hold the position of each space. So the index 0 will hold the position of the first space, and the index 1 or the second index will hold the position of the second space. So let me declare the array with 2 elements, and we will declare an integer called position index that we will be passing into this array, and we will start from 0 like by default. Now, since we are in our while loop, remember we already know that's going to be a line. So we can increase our counter of elements by 1. Now we are going to process the first name, first line. So for integer I equals 0, I is less than the length of the line, the complete length from which includes basically the length of all this, first name, last name, and the age, as well as the spaces all together. And of course we will do the I++. So, and within this loop we will find the spaces. So if our line of index I equals an empty space, then we know it's a space. So we can do our space position of the position index, which is 0 over here. Remember, we declared it before the for loop and set it to 0. So this is gonna be the first one with the first space, and it equals I. That's the we just found the space, we found its position, and we pass in that position into our element 0. So now we will move to our position number 2, and which is basically the last one, but there's only 2 elements. So it keeps looping, finds the second space. So now the position index is now 1. So it's gonna be the second position index, and passes the I, or the position of the second space, to it, and finish the looping. Doesn't find any more spaces, there's only 2 of them, so basically it exits, and we now have the position of the 2 spaces in each line, in the line, not each line yet, just the first line, for example, because again we are processing it line by line. So now we have the indexes of the spaces. So now we have position of the spaces. So we can now delimit the line into 3 words. So we can line into 3 words. Well, it's not really words because one of them is an H, but it's still a string. At this point, it's still a string. So we can do a string first name equals, and it starts from the element. What's the first name? Let's look at it. First name is index 0 all the way to the space of which is the, and the first space is space position of index 0. So our first name equals to the line that we can do the substring. It starts from 0, like from the beginning, and it goes all the way to the whatever is stored in our position, space position of 0. All right, so starts from 0, goes to first index in space position. Okay, so that's our first name. Our last name will be similar, string last name. Now if you look at last name, the last name starts from the space, but not exactly just the space. We have to move to the next letter after that, so it's the space plus 1, and it goes all the way to the second space over here. Now that gives us the length of the word of the last name. It doesn't give us the if I type it goes from here, and the space position over here, we still need to do -1 because we only up to here. All right, so we add 1 to our space position, the first one. It starts from A over here, then it goes all the way here, -1. It ends with N. So it will be our line, the substring, and again it starts from space position of 0. Again we add 1, and now we have to do the space position 1 1, yeah. And now if you look at it, what we need to do, we have the length of the word, so we have to subtract that from the length of the whole line. That will give us the end actual the actual position of the whole word. So the formula for that basically is minus space position of the element 0 and minus 1. So let me just write a comment, so maybe that will let me just type it above it. So last name starts from first name first space plus 1, and the length is the length of the word, how many characters is the second is the last name. So it's the length is the second space position and minus 1, because we are going so it's minus the first space position, and then actually also minus 1. So this is the formula. It's the first space plus 1, and it goes, because this just gives us the starting position, and this gives us how many characters are we moving forward from this position. Alright, so you'll see how it works. It's a little, I'm not really sure how to explain it any better. Best way would be for you to just experiment with different values and see how many characters it cuts off, you know, or how many it adds to the end of it. So let's just do the age. So it's gonna be the integer age, and since this is an integer, we'll do our stoi function, and it's gonna be the line dot substring, and this is the space position of the second space, and that's where it starts, and it goes all the way to the end. There is no more words or no more characters after that. So basically from that point, from this point forward, it gives us the age, and we're converting it to integer. So convert to integer. Alright, so that's our, now we have our first name, last name, and age. And what we can do now is create the or push this into the array of names. So which is our vector. We can add it now to our vector, and as it loops, it will be doing this whole thing line by line, name by name, and adding it, splitting it and adding it to our vector. So our array of names, we will push back, and we will do person, and we will be passing the first name, we will be passing the last name. This is actually going to the constructor, and the age. Now we are creating an object of person, passing the first name, last name, and age. You can see in our person it expects first name, last name, and age, and then we'll add that object to our array of names. Okay, so that's how you split it. That's how you add it to the array, or in our case into a vector. So after the while loop ends, when there's no more lines, we can move forward. We can now close the file, so we will input file.close, and now we can call the CalculateAvgAge function. So we can create a variable called, let's say, avg, and we will pass to it the result of the CalculateAvgAge function. And remember, the AvgAge function expects the array of objects of person, or in our case it's gonna be the array of names, and the counter, which will hold the number of elements in our vector. So over here I will do over here I will do a double calculate average age, and it expects the vector of person, which will be called array of names, and it expects an integer that counts the number of elements in it, which is the array of names. Array of names elements, how many elements are in it. So we will do the calculating average is simple, so the average will equal 0 to, by default, and integer we will create a total which will simply add all the ages together, and now we will loop through the vector with all the names and sum all the ages. So we will do for integer I equals 0. This is the classic. We now have the counter that holds the number of elements. That's how many times we loop, and I++. And our total we will add to each name. So array of names of I, the element I, dot, and we will call the getAge function, and it will return the age of that person, one person at a time. So it loops through all the elements in the array, all the people in the array, and adds an age of each of the person to our total. So now when we have the total, we can calculate the average. Our average is simply equal total divided by counter. Counter holds the number of people in it in the array, so it's basically all the ages divided by counter gives us the average. Now since this is a double, I'm going to add times 1.0, so the result is not truncated to an integer, so it keeps the decimal places. So, and we will return the AVG. So now over here our average now equals whatever is returned from this function. So now all we have to do is display the output. So we will call display output, and we again are passing the array of names, and we will be passing this time the average. So because I want to display all the names from the file, and I want to display the average age on the bottom of the output. So I'll create another function, void display output, and once again it expects the vector of person, and call it array of names, just like the one that we used, and expects a double of average. That's the average age that we calculated. So this one is display all names in formatted output. So best way again is to do it through the loop. So integer I equals 0, I is less than array of names. Now we could pass over here the counter as well, but this way at least you'll see that counter actually basically equals to the array of names dot size. That's the counter. We don't necessarily need the counter, because we can always retrieve the number of elements in the vector using the dot size method. So I++ array of names, that's it, not array, just ARR, there you go. And in it we will do something like cout, and it will say person. I will capitalize it just because, person number, and it will say person number 1, person number 2, and how many people there are, and it will equal I+1 because we're starting from 0, so we will say person. We don't want person number 0, we want person number 1, person number 2, and so forth. So this will simply output person number 1, and now we can output something like cout, and it will say first name, and it will, the first name is the array of names of the index of I that we are looping through currently, and we will do the get first name that will return the first name and output it. Cout, it's gonna be last name, and it will be the array of names I dot get last name. And actually at the end we can do end of line. The same over here, so it outputs everything on one line, separate line. And we'll do the age, and that the age of course equals the array of names I dot get age. And at the end we will simply do like a little separator, just so it separates each person. So basically it will output the one person, then the line, the dotted line, then next person, and so forth. Now after that, after we have all the people outputted, we will see out the age, the average age. So on a new line we will start average age is, and we will do we will format the output with 2 decimal places, so it will be set precision 2 places. It's gonna be fixed, and it's gonna be the average that is being passed into this function. We don't calculate anymore, it's already calculated, so we will simply just pass it to it, and so it will say the average age is whatever, 20 something years, just like that, and end line. All right, so you know what, let's see if that builds, and if it is, we'll try it out and see what we get. A little longer. All right, 1 succeeded, 0 failed, so let's run it. And here's the result. It outputs all the people: person number 1 Neo, last name Anderson, age 33, person number 2 4, 5, and so forth, and at the end its average age is 24 plus 0.71 years. Now let's see if that's correct. We can calculate it easily. So it's gonna be 33 plus 40 plus 10 plus 8 plus 2 plus 52 plus 28 divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, and it's 24.71 years. So that is actually correct. Oh, that was this over here I add a space, so the format is not so cramped together. So let's run it now one more time, and we get the same result, 24.71. All the people are output here with the names and ages. So yeah, that's seems to be like a working program. It's very simple. Again, there's not much of a validation. It's easy to break. I can if I add spaces, or if I add a character, like a another name to it, to the text file, like on the same line, let's say I would add Neo and middle name Anderson, that would screw up the thing, because we are calculating only 2 spaces, so this has to be actually quite strictly formatted. But yeah, for this exercise it's good enough. So hopefully it was helpful. I hope you can follow the logic, how the name is being split, with the spaces and everything, what is being calculated. Again, the first name starts from position 0 of the line. It starts basically here, and it goes all the way to the first space. That's very simple. However, the last name, we know where it starts, but we still don't know where it ends, because the substring method, the way it works, you will use the starting position and then the length of the word, not the ending position. It's simply like when I do Anderson, I need to say that the length of the word is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the way to do it is we know the spaces, we know the length of the first word. We can simply start from the first space plus 1, because we're starting from the letter A, and the length is simply space position 1, which is here, minus space position 0, which is here, and that gives us the length of the word, minus 1, again, because we don't want to include the space, we just want the letters. So this space, or the position of this, minus this, gives us the length up to here, minus 1, which removes the space, so it will give us number 8 in this case, in the case of Anderson. And of course the age, we have to convert it to integer. We know that it starts from position from the space position 1 and all the way to the end of the line, because that is the last entry of the line. Alright, so if you like the video, or if it was helpful, please click the like button, share it with your friends if they have if they are studying C++ and maybe are struggling with this kind of exercises. And don't forget to comment if you notice any bugs. Let me know, and I'll see you next time. Take care.